Hello and welcome to Buffy and the Art of Story. If you love the Buffyverse and you like creating stories or just taking them apart to see how they work, you're in the right place. Today we're talking about Season 1, Episode 13 of Angel, She, where Angel clashes with a woman warrior from another dimension who is fighting to save the enslaved women of her homeland. I am Lisa M. Lilly, author of the Awakening Supernatural thriller series, the QC Davis Mysteries, and the Writing as a Second Career books for writers. You can find all of those and back episodes of Buffy and the Art of Story, including those that cover Buffy the Vampires Slayer from seasons 1 through 7 at lisalilly.com. That's LISALILLY.com. Along with a recap of She, today I'll talk about the antagonist twist, unintended themes, issues that affect pacing, a lack of character growth or layers in one of our antagonistic characters, and my rating of the episode on a scale of 0 to 10. As always, there will be no spoilers for Angel, but I may talk about all of Buffy the Vampire Slayer from time to time, so if you have not watched the entire show, proceed with caution. Okay, let's dive into the Hellmouth, or maybe just Los Angeles. She aired the first time on February 8, 2000. It was written by Marty Noxon and David Greenwalt and directed by David Greenwalt. It begins, as every good story should, with some conflict. The first conflict is fairly minor, but it is really fun. There is a big party going on at Cordelia's apartment. Angel is standing there alone and agrees that this is his idea of hell when Cordelia comes up to him, though he notes that in hell he'd know more people. Wesley, though, is having a wonderful time. He is dancing. He's really awkward at it, but he's having fun. And then he falls, but he gets right up. He's wearing this heavy cable knit sweater. He goes over to Angel and says they should chat up some fillies. But when this woman comes over to talk to him, he so struggles. She compliments his sweater, asks if it's hand knitted, and he stumbles and stutters and says, oh no, he didn't knit it himself, but he'll pass on her compliments to the person who knitted it, although he doesn't know who that is, so he guesses he won't be passing anything on. Next, we see Angel talking to a very attractive woman. She's talking about her business, and it's going okay. He's not saying much, and he's a little awkward, but he is listening, which is a great quality in a conversation partner. But then she asks him to dance. He sees Wesley across the floor, again, so awkward, and then has a flash of himself dancing, looking even more ridiculous. It is very funny. And we cut back to reality, and he says, I don't dance. He goes into the kitchen. Phantom Dennis, Cordelia's resident ghost, pulls out a chair for Angel. Of course, we don't see Dennis. The chair just pulls out. Angel sits down and says, hey, Dennis, still dead? A beer can slides over to Angel and pops open, and Angel says, I know the feeling. In the next scene, a man in a warehouse pops open a beer. So we have that nice image linking the two scenes, something I mentioned last episode, which is a great way to transition. Behind the man is this coffin-sized wooden crate, and it starts to hum. He goes over to investigate and pries it open. Vapor rises. There's a bright light. And we go to credits. That was the inciting incident or story spark that gets the main plot rolling. In Angel's office, Cordelia tells him she mistakenly bought the whole coffee beans rather than the ground ones. So she can't make coffee, but she suggests he use his vampire strength and just mush the bag, mush it, and maybe he can turn those coffee beans into coffee grounds. He tells her it was a good party, and Cordelia says, "I was so glad you came. You know how parties are. You're always worried that no one's going to suck the energy out of the room like a giant black hole of despair, but there you were in the clinch." Angel's a little taken aback. He thought he did okay, but he reminds her he has two modes with humans, bite and avoid. She tells him he could be nice, and he asks, doesn't being quiet and reserved make him mysterious and cool? Cordelia tells him Wesley was cooler as Wesley enters. Wesley raves so much about the tiny little sandwiches at Cordelia's party and how good they were, and whether there are any left, that Angel asks if he needs money. Wesley doesn't think a gentleman should discuss finances, but immediately says yes, please, when Angel offers him a job. Cordelia is thrilled too, especially when she learns that it does not mean she will get a pay cut. Wesley tears up, and after saying he doesn't need to be so sentimental, Cordelia says, "Hold me." But she's not asking for a hug. She's having a vision. They catch her in time. She sees a man burned alive from the inside out. He's at an ice factory. And when she is sitting and they're about to head off, she comments on the exploding eyeballs and how she feels all of it, and she hates this job. Wesley drives and stays with the car outside the warehouse to keep watch. Inside, Angel finds the victim's wallet. There's a business card inside. He finds the incinerated corpse too, and a crate that is now just filled with ice. A demon, Tay, is skulking. Angel confronts him. Tay looks quite a bit like a human man, but he has these ridges down either side of his face, and he says he is from a different dimension. He's seeking the bringer of chaos, which escaped from it. It is a vessel of pure rage. No one man can stop it, and if Angel wants to live, he better stay away. We're already 13 minutes into the episode, and around here is where we usually see the first major plot turn that comes from outside the protagonist and spins the story. So this could be seen as that plot turn. It's the first time we know there is something otherworldly going on. We had a hint at that story spark, but now we know for sure, and we meet Tay. I love the party scene, but to this point, the episode feels a little slow to me, and I think part of that is that Cordelia's vision fills in the blanks of what we've already seen, which is okay. That helps get the story moving, but then Angel goes to the scene we've already seen and sees the ice, and we meet Tay, and yes, Tay gives us new information. But all of this could have happened really quickly. At the same time, I do love the advancing of Wesley's subplot, so I would not want to give that up. At the office again, Wesley says that Tay must have come from a portal between the dimensions. Cordelia is shocked that those exist. Wesley, while talking, keeps calling Angel boss, and Cordelia tells him to stop sucking up. Angel heads to the victim's office. The victim was a private security agency, and he wants to know who hired them. In a file cabinet he pries open, he finds an envelope of cash and an invoice or packing slip. Then a female demon with the same markings as Tay, or very similar ones, appears, and we go to commercial. So you could also see this as that first major plot turn. Whether it's that or an escalation, this does get the plot moving a bit faster. On return from the commercial, the woman asks if Angel is working for them. He says he's looking for a killer that burned its victim alive. Does she know anything about that? But she's not about to stay and talk. She knocks Angel out of the way, scorching his arm as she does. And he seems to be knocked unconscious. She gets a call on her cell phone and says something like, "Where? How soon?" And she takes off. On the street, she pulls up a hood to help hide those ridges on her face and gets in her car. This is another escalation that this woman demon has attacked and seemingly overpowered Angel, but he recovers quickly, leaps off the roof of the building, gets in his convertible, and follows her. As he drives, he tries to call Cordelia on his cell phone. Cell phones were somewhat new at this point, and Angel really struggles with it. It is out of battery, so he has to find a cord and plug it in. It's getting tangled. There's static, and it's hard for him to hear Cordelia or her to hear him. He nearly gets in a crash when he does a quick turn to follow the woman. Cordelia does manage to tell him there were 4 similar killings in the last year with the men incinerated from inside. He describes Tay to her and comments he thinks cell phones were cooked up by some bored warlock. He describes the woman demon as having violet eyes, raised ridges down her cheeks, and being very attractive. The call drops, and he tosses the phone in the back seat. Last episode, I commented on some moments of pure exposition. Wesley and either Angel or Cordelia or both were just exchanging information. This is a great example of how to do that and keep the tension high. We've got Angel struggling with the phone. We have failures to get through to one another. Cordelia and Angel are irritated. Angel almost causes a crash. So there's all this other stuff going on while he and Cordelia exchange information. And unlike a couple of the scenes last time, some of this is new information. That there were 4 other men is new. We'll find out shortly that the woman demon's name is Jira, so I am just going to call her that. Jira goes into a museum. She tells a guard that a man in a dark coat is following her, and she's worried. She rushes off, and the guard goes looking. But Angel has wisely taken off his coat. He folds it over his arm, stands in front of a painting, and begins talking about it, picking up as if he were a guide. And he offers lots of good insights, including pointing out that the painter himself is in the distance of the painting with Baudelaire, and he notes that there was speculation that Baudelaire's poem Le Vampire was about a real vampire. He ends by pointing out that Baudelaire was a little taller and a lot drunker than he appears in the painting, and everyone claps. Meanwhile, at the office, Wesley found The Vagaries of Odin Tal in a book. Tay is one of these. The men are fierce warriors, and they enslave all the women. The men also are herbivores. They need to eat half their weight in a thick stew of flowers and plants every day. Cordelia says to find them, they need to find the biggest compost heap in Los Angeles. Angel confronts Jira in an upstairs storage room. She realizes he's a vampire because a human would have been knocked out for hours. That tells us that she was not trying to kill Angel. She burned him, but she wasn't trying to kill him, just get him out of her way. He tells her he can't have a tourist torching people in his world. She urges him to leave, to stay out of her way, but then there is a lot of bright light and noise, and a woman falls through a swirling portal onto the floor. Angel wraps a tarp around her and notices a ridge down the back of her neck and spine. Tay and others like him burst in. Jira and Angel fight, but Tay grabs the new female demon and drives off with her. This is about 22 minutes through the episode, and I see it as the midpoint reversal. Usually we see our protagonist suffer some major reversal or make a major commitment to the quest, or both. And here, Angel has failed to protect this woman. It is a midpoint that lacks some power because we don't know yet what is going on. We have found out that Tay is from a world where the men enslave women, so we now know he's a bad guy. Initially, it seemed like Angel might be on the same side as him because he wanted to stop this being that was burning men alive, but now we know he's a bad guy. But we don't quite know what Jira's deal is. I like the complexity of that. I like switching out our antagonist, finding out that maybe Jira is not a villain and she's not the antagonist after all. At the same time, it doesn't feel that powerful because we don't exactly know yet what's going on or what has been lost. That is also part of why this episode feels slow to me when I was watching. Based on what events had happened, I still thought we were pretty close to the first major plot turn. Initially in my notes, I wrote down maybe this is the first major plot turn. And then I looked at the time and saw it was halfway through the episode. Now Jira tells Angel that the girl, which is how throughout the episode all these female demons are talked about, always as the girl, the girls, they never get names. Jira says the girl will be unmade. So this is an escalation and a complication. We cut to the new female demon who is pleading with Tay and the others not to do this to her. And one of them says, "Why does it speak when no one listens?" They say they will restore her. She will feel better once it's over. And they use this clamp-like instrument on the ridge on her spine. She screams, and we cut to a commercial. So this is a bit later than the midpoint when it comes to timing in the episode, but I'm going to take back what I said about the moment that they grab the new female demon as the reversal, because the real reversal is this. She is being unmade. We now know what that means. Jira has said it is almost like dying. She compares it to being killed. So that is more of the midpoint. It just comes a bit late. It also escalates because we know it is not only human men at risk, it is all these female demons that are coming to this world. At Angel's apartment, Jira and Angel talk. She wears black leather pants and a black halter. She's in great shape. She looks terrific other than her arm is cut. She asks Angel why he is helping her. Vampires are killers. An interesting ambiguity that in some ways mirrors hers, which I am sure is intentional. Angel tells her that gypsies, which is how he refers to them and the show does, so I'll use the term. He tells her gypsies cursed him, and she says to help people, and he tells her gypsies have a strange sense of humor. He gives her bandages. There is a lot of chemistry between them, and she explains that the girl ran away from her homeland. Jira is a princess of Odental. Her mission is to help other female refugees escape being unmade and live more or less safely in Los Angeles. Jira was the first to escape. She's from a royal family, but her family is embarrassed by her. They told everyone she's dead. She then explains that for the women of her world, their personality, their desires, their passions are all located in this ridge that runs from the back of the neck down the spine, basically over where our spinal cords are, and it is called the co. She turns her back to show Angel. He bends his head close to her neck, very close. Jira tells him the men in Odental cut out the co. That allows them to control the women. It removes their physical and sexual power and their will, so they now serve men without any question. She adds that when the women come of age, they need to learn to control this raw power that comes with maturing. And at first, it's very difficult. And when they come to Los Angeles through the portal, it's especially a challenge. And the men in Angel's world respond involuntarily to this sexual power that they have. She says that she struggled when she first arrived to learn to control it until she found that ice could contain the heat under her skin. She alludes to men trying to force themselves on her and on one of the other girls, and that's why the men ended up dead. But she does agree that sometimes it's only that a man touches one of the girls and they burn him alive, not purposely, but because they can't control their power yet. Her glows as she tells Angel all of this, and the two draw closer and closer together. She adds that the shows when the woman is aroused and when she has found a suitable mate. And actually, it's after this that he asks about the 4 men who were burnt to death, and she explains about one of them trying to force himself on a girl. And when Angel says the man who just touched the girl, if he couldn't help himself, he wasn't trying to do anything wrong. And she says, well, the girl couldn't help her response. She didn't mean to kill him. It was an accident. Angel tells her he's sworn to protect this world and he can't have men in it burned to death. But she tells him to stay out of her way and leaves. This year, I have been trying to record more patron bonus episodes. On Friday the 13th, a bonus released about why Buffy disconnects from her friends throughout the course of the series. And I went through every season through season 7. The episode before that looked at Willow and whether or not you buy that she would really try to end the world at the end of season 6. And then one of my favorites from the end of 2025 is Mission's boyfriend, Angel, Riley, and the Warrior Identity. Those are all available to patrons in the collections tab on my Patreon page. That is patreon.com/Lisa M. Lilly, patreon.com/LISA, M as in Marie, LILLY. I've also recorded another one that I have not edited yet about Xander's proposal to Anya and whether or not she is correct at the time when she says he's doing it because it's this big romantic gesture and he doesn't think he'll have to follow through with it. So that will be coming soon. All of the bonus episodes going back from almost when I started the podcast are available to paid patrons in that bonus collection tab. And you can also follow me free on Patreon. You won't get all the bonus episodes, but there are some that are available to patrons at the free level, and you'll get other free content from time to time. If you join Patreon at any of the paid levels, you also get an ebook edition of Buffy and the Art of Story Season 1, Writing Better Fiction by Watching Buffy. At Tier 2, you get access to my online course, which is right there on Patreon, How to Plot Your Novel from Idea to First Draft. And then I often forget to mention this, but at the 3rd tier, which is $25 a month, if you join at that level and stay for just 2 months, you are entitled to a critique from me of your written outline of your novel. So if you are looking for help with the plot points and turns or just feedback, you can send that to me and I will give you my thoughts. Right now, that is the only way that I offer that type of feedback. You can find more details on patreon.com/Lisa M. Lilly. And thank you to everyone on Patreon for your support. We cut to Wesley and Cordelia. They're at a large nursery. They find the giant compost area. Before they get there, Cordelia says they should have waited for Angel, but Wesley wanted to take initiative now that he's an employee. The two of them hide when they see Tay and the other demons with the girl. Her has been removed. She says it is happy to go home with them. The men talk about their plan to capture Princess Jira, unmake her, and end the rebellion. And they mention that the girls who have come through the portal are probably at that location that just got the big shipments of ice. Jira goes to a spa in Palm Springs. The new female demons are there on ice in whirlpool tubs. She tells the proprietor that the girls need to be moved because Tay is after them. The proprietor knows a shaman in the desert with a safe place, and he never turns away scantily clad women in distress. This is around where usually we would see the last major plot turn that should grow from that midpoint and spin the story in yet another new direction. The midpoint was that reversal, either when the new female demon is taken away or when her co is removed. This does grow from it because now they're coming after Jira more directly and coming after the others. And it is a sort of escalation because we know that the vagaries of Odenthal know where Jira and the others are. But I'm not sure it really turns the story. So that's another reason that this feels a bit slow to me. Angel's going to come, he's going to help, there's going to be a big fight. Spoiler alert. This doesn't really create any sort of new direction. It's a little bit more of a, and then this happened, and this happened, and this happened, and this happened. And that can work for a story. But in this one, it doesn't feel like there's that much going on in the way of turns or twists. Now, Cordelia and Wesley go to Angel's apartment. He is just getting out of the shower. They're upset that they couldn't reach him. They were tracking down these demons, but he says he needed the shower. Based on the previous scene, he probably needed a cold shower. They fill him in. Angel connects the ice deliveries to that invoice that he took from the victim's office, so they all head off to the spa in Palm Springs. They arrive at night, very convenient for Angel. He tells Wesley and Cordelia to stay outside and warn him when the demons arrive. He goes in, finds Jira, tells her she needs to move the girls. She tells him she knows, but he says Tay is coming, and Cordelia walks in and says, now. Angel tells Cordelia and Wes to get the girls out. He stays to fight with Jira. Tay and the demons come in. There's lots of fighting. Wesley does help Cordelia get the girls into crates of ice to load onto a truck, but he keeps getting distracted because he's so attracted to them. He tries to flirt with them. He says something like, how about just one goodbye kiss? Clearly, he cannot help himself. Cordelia keeps getting him on task again. And this fits with what Jira said about how powerful these female demons are and how the men in this world cannot control themselves around them. Inside, Angel and Jira are still fighting. So we're at the climax of the episode where the opposing forces have their final confrontation. The fight's going pretty well for Angel and Jira, but Wesley and Cordelia go inside to join, and the vagaries grab them and threaten to kill them if Angel doesn't turn over the girls and Jira doesn't agree to go with them. And I think it's Tay who says, if you don't do this, they'll die, meaning Cordelia and Wesley. And Jira says, then they die, and she takes off. The fight continues. Wesley and Cordelia manage to free themselves. Jira heads for the truck and is almost inside when two vagaries grab her. Tay holds up that cutting tool, ready to destroy her co, but Angel appears and gets Tay in a headlock. He says he'll kill their leader unless the other vagaries release Jira. They do. Angel tells Jira to go to save the girls. She drives off, and when she's far enough away, Angel releases Tay and tells him don't bring his war to Angel's world again. Tay scoffs at this human, threatening him. Angel goes into vamp face, says he's not human, and Tay better grab the last portal out. Now we are in the falling action. That's where the story winds up. Subplots, if there are any, ties up loose ends, sometimes moves the action of the season arc forward. It's morning in the office. Angel decides to try to mush those coffee beans, and the bag bursts and they spray all over the floor right as Cordelia and Wesley enter. Wesley slips and falls on them, And I have to say, Alexis Denisof is really good at physical comedy. He is really good at doing those slip and falls. They seem so realistic. And Wesley is so awkward. And he starts picking them up by hand and apologizing. And Cordelia says, wow, groveling isn't just a way of life for you. It's an art. But Wesley just goes on. He's sorry for making a mess and for getting taken hostage. That never happens, and he did free himself. Angel tells him he's not fired, which is what Wesley was worried about. Wesley says he is Angel's faithful servant, and Cordelia says something like I said. Gira enters. Cordelia asks if she can get her anything, maybe a knife to hold to their throats so Gira can run away. In the inner office, alone with Angel, Gira tells him the girls are safe far from the city. Angel is glad about that, but he is not happy she risked Cordelia's and Wesley's lives. If you're sworn to protect the innocent, it shouldn't matter which dimension they're from. She talks more about her mission. He reiterates that he'll stop her if she crosses the line and endangers the people of his world. They stand very close and agree they'll each do what they think is right. Gira's glows as she leaves. Angel looks after her, breathless. That is the end of the story. As far as the plot goes, having that switch from meeting Tay, thinking Angel and he might be aligned, then believing Gira is the antagonist, then discovering Tay is the villain, can be a very powerful technique to build a strong plot. It's always good to have more than only the antagonist pushing against your protagonist. I guess I shouldn't say always. I'll say often, especially if you were writing a mystery, if you're writing a detective mystery, which some episodes of Angel are, you often need a number of other characters to push back because the detective quite often does not know who the antagonist is, or maybe doesn't face the antagonist until the end. And we need other forces opposing the protagonist, other roadblocks. This one is not a mystery. All the same, I like that Gira is pushing against Angel too. And in a way, he is fighting on two fronts. He's fighting to find the killer of these men and then fighting the vagaries who are there to capture those killers, the female demons, and basically destroy them. And there are complications there because it turns out they are not killers in the sense of they are not intending to kill anyone. All of that could make this a very gripping, compelling plot, but for the reasons I mentioned, it moves a bit slowly, where normally I feel like those kinds of complications would keep the episode very engaging. The second half of the episode, like the first, doesn't feel all that powerful, but for different reasons. There's a lot of characters just kind of finding out things pretty easily. Wesley and Cordelia in a giant city go to the one plant nursery that has the compost heap where Tay and his demons are hanging out. That's sort of their headquarters. Okay, Cordelia says, we have to find the biggest compost heap in LA. And I'm glad it's Cordelia that figures that out. I like that she's being very active this episode, but that's so implausible, especially when you consider, yeah, there was the internet, but there wasn't nearly the amount of information readily available as there is now. So how they would even know which one had the biggest compost heap, and the likelihood that one would have that distinction and they could get there so quickly, and that would be the exact one where Tay is. It's all pretty easy. Likewise, Tay and the demons figure out, oh, we just go where all this ice was shipped. How do they know that? Well, I guess maybe they went through the victim's office as well, just like Angel did. But there was that big fight and they took the new female demon away. So I'm not sure who stayed back to go through all the invoices. Plus, Angel had already taken that invoice. And we don't necessarily need to see every step in the way of Tay figuring out where the girls are. In fact, that would slow things down more. But it is another example of a very quick and convenient, oh, hey, we know where they are. And then Angel just happens to have taken that one invoice that has the address he needs. Okay, it was with an envelope full of cash, but that too seems very convenient that this was the one ICE shipment when this security service, one would think, probably worked with Jira a number of times, although that isn't quite clear, because if men were getting burnt from the inside out, maybe she had to keep switching services. I don't know. It just seems really easy. And that adds to that feel of what I said, where the plot feels a lot like this happens, this happens, this happens, this happens, no real significant turns. Other than that, the one where we discover maybe Jira's not so bad, she's protecting these female demons, and we see how terrible Tay and the vagaries are when they remove that female demon's co. A story like this, even if the pace is a bit slow, there's some convenient developments, there aren't perhaps enough major plot turns, can still work really well if we are strongly invested in the characters, if there is a big emotional weight to it. I did not feel that way about this episode, and I'll talk about that more in the character section. For now, I'll move on to theme. There are some unintended, I hope unintended, themes here that also undercut the episode for me. The themes that I suspect were intended, I do really like. That there are a lot of gray areas in the world. Jira is not all good or all bad. She is on a mission that Angel can unequivocally agree with, but she is not that troubled by men getting burned to death. She probably doesn't love it. She says it was an accident. It was unintentional, but she's not that concerned about it, just as she is very quick to sacrifice Cordelia and Wesley. And it raises questions about having a good mission, but perhaps doing things that are bad in order to achieve the ends you want. Do the ends justify the means? And where is the line? This crosses over into the theme of what is justified to do in protecting your people. She is protecting her people and is less concerned about Angel's. Angel seems equally concerned about the men of his world and the women of hers, which is good from a storytelling perspective, because while Angel has his own gray areas, we want to see him as the hero. And that is what a hero would do, try to protect everyone. Now, when it comes down to it, though, would he protect Wesley and Cordelia over Jira's people? He doesn't end up having to make that choice because they get out of it themselves and Jira has already taken off. I like that the episode deals in these questions, and I don't necessarily need to have it resolved, because that is the point of the episode, that there isn't one good answer to this other than, as Angel does, to try to protect both. The question of whether Jira is a hero, a villain, a little bit of both is also an interesting one. There isn't a lot of resolution there. Both she and Angel agree they'll do what they need to do. She understands, she says she understands that Angel will be there if she crosses the line, but she doesn't make any attempt to work with him and doesn't seem as dedicated as he is to let's try to protect everybody. The other theme here is the obvious one, the metaphor to female genital mutilation, and the themes of otherizing women, the vagaries of Odin Tal, the men call the women it, and the various ways that men attempt to control women's sexuality and therefore control them. Unfortunately, though, to me, there are these unintended themes One is the idea of women's sexuality being dangerous and women's anger being dangerous, because we have this reference to this vessel of rage that isn't reiterated. And the rest of the episode focuses on the sexuality, but that linking, that fear is troubling to me. I don't have a problem that the bad guys, the vagaries, are afraid of this, but the episode itself shows that these female demons come into our world and men are literally fried from the inside, and that the men cannot help but be drawn to them. And this happens. So that seems to say women are very dangerous when they are fully sexual. There's also this linking of women's sexuality with their power. I agree that for anyone, their sexuality can be linked to power, that it can be a healthy force within someone, a healthy motivation. It can equate to power. The way it is done here makes me a little uneasy because of arguments in U.S. culture, at least when I was in college and in law school, this pushback against women pointing out all the disparities in the workplace, the disparities in things like the number of our congresspeople who are men versus women compared to the 50-50 population, the number of judges, the number of presidents, which is 0 still. And then a pushback saying, oh, but women are really the ones who are most powerful because they're these sexual beings and they control their sexuality and men are just helpless before it. And we see that here too. The men are helpless before these women who have come into their power and their full sexuality. So I find that troubling. I do not think in any way that the writers intended that to be the message. And I think they were trying to say that that was not the way to see things, that this is how kind of the bad guys see it. And it's only because these women come into our world that this happens. But the imagery is very strong, as is what happened in the story. And to add to it, Jira is dressed in a way that really reminds me of superhero comics whenever you have these powerful female characters and they're in these scanty outfits. And we have a reference to the shaman who never turns away scantily clad women in distress. Now that could be a bit of poking fun. It probably is. But that and Jira remind me of this panel I saw at Comic-Con called Fix Her Armor. These women illustrators were talking about something that drives me crazy, how you will see this team of male and female superheroes and the men have these suits on and they're like zipped up to the neck and they've got armor and they're protected. And then the women are wearing, both of them have these tight-fitting suits on, but the women are wearing something and theirs has a plunging neckline, because what you want if you're going into battle is to have your heart exposed. You wouldn't want armor over your heart to help protect it like the men have. No, you want it exposed. I am hoping that listeners who are also fans of the Buffy and the Art of Story books can help me out with something. I've gotten a number of questions about whether there will be another book. Right now, there is season 1, and there are 2 books each for season 2 and 3. I go episode by episode. Very similar to what's in the podcast, but it is shaped and edited. There are subheaders making it easier for you to skip to the parts that most interest you. Each chapter also starts with key topics that the episode covers and ends with questions to apply what you learned from the episode to your own writing. These books are pretty time-consuming to put together. They're generally the length of a full-length novel. I am hoping to write season 4, part 1 this year, and I am considering releasing it through Kickstarter to start with. It would eventually be for sale everywhere you're used to getting the books, whether it's any of the ebook platforms or borrowing at your library or buying the print book online or from a bookstore. But if I did the Kickstarter, you could get the ebook early before anyone else, and I would offer some bonuses with it. One I'm thinking about is a workbook that would cover those questions at the ends of the chapters, maybe with a few more notes to help you work on your own fiction. Probably you'd be able to get a PDF of that with your ebook, something that wouldn't be available through the stores, or at another tier, you might get the Spiral workbook. What I would like to know from you is there additional content you would like to get? Say, character studies for the episodes in the book, a real deep dive into Professor Walsh or Adam, if you're interested in villains, or Buffy and Riley's relationship. What topics would interest you to get some extra content that wouldn't be available generally for sale, but that you could get if you got in on the Kickstarter? It could be written content. It could be extra audio episodes. This would be my first time on the platform, so I'm going to try to keep it somewhat simple, but I want to create things that people are excited about. So please let me know your thoughts, or let me know if your view is, hey, I just want to get the book. I'm not interested in any extras like that, because that will tell me something too, and maybe I'll just release the book the usual way. You can send me your thoughts at buffystorypod@gmail.com, or in the comments on YouTube or on Patreon or on the Buffy and the Art of Story Facebook page. Thank you so much in advance for sending me your thoughts and ideas. So not only are we having these female demons come into this world, they burn men to death because of their powerful sexuality. We have Jira. Certainly in Buffy, I have never had an issue with what a female character is wearing. And I love the idea that Buffy can be attractive and love clothes and be pretty and be sexual and be a hero and fight evil, because the show as a whole really is about her having this power. It's because of the rest of the story of She. It is in the context of a world where female sexuality is literally dangerous and sometimes fatal to men. And that adds another theme, which is this idea that women, if their sexuality is not controlled, are lethal. Jira says she learned to control it, and they can learn to control it. That pushes back against that message somewhat, but I think it is still there. And finally, there is in this story this message of men being unable to control themselves. Wesley cannot stop flirting with these girls as he's trying to save them, even though he knows what's going on. The victim in the beginning goes and opens that crate, even though you have to think that he was warned to never do that. That echoes a message of, oh, well, if you dress like that, how could the man help himself? If you are a sexual being, men cannot be responsible for controlling themselves. Now, Shiras is clearly saying, hey, that's their problem. Like, didn't necessarily want him burned to death, but they shouldn't have touched my girls. So there is a little counterbalance to it, but I find that aspect of it very troubling. And it raises the question of, is Angel genuinely attracted to Jira? She has said she has learned to control her power, but does that mean she can turn it on or off? Is Angel genuinely drawn to her, or does he have no choice? I don't think it is meant to say he has no choice. I think we are to see it as he is drawn to her. They could be suitable mates for each other, but there are all these barriers in the way. Moving on to characters. This is where I feel like the episode falters the most, because as I said, the plot, you don't have to have certain specific plot turns done just a certain way. There are certainly twists in this story. It does move along, it escalates. And I could put aside those themes if the characters really grabbed me. But Jira does not seem like much of a character. I like that she has this strong dedication to saving these female demons. I wish they weren't called girls throughout the episode and weren't unnamed, which also contributes to my feelings about those unintended themes. But setting those aside, the fact that she doesn't name them, it doesn't feel like she has a deep personal connection. We are told she has this mission. We see her fighting, but the girls are being carted around. We don't see her having a connection with them. Her personality mainly seems to be very alluring and be very sexual and be very strong. That's what we know about her, and that's what we see, and it isn't enough for me to be that engaged. And a downside of the twist, where we think Angel might be allied with Tay, is that the victim, the guy who gets burnt to death, isn't really the emotional focus of the episode. And that's okay. I don't need him to be. But likewise, Angel doesn't really have a personal connection with anyone. Usually with Angel, there is some one person he is trying to help. And here, there is no personal connection there. And while Angel, like Jira, is very dedicated to his mission, he wants to protect anyone in his world, it's almost an abstract protection. Angel, I do not think, grows or changes at all in this episode. It more brings out for the audience these struggles that Angel has. They are the ones he has had for the series to date and previously in Buffy. How can he be in the world while making sure he can control himself and not harm anyone? So that is another way that Jira is a sort of foil for him. She likewise had to learn to control herself. She seems a lot less concerned about whether she hurts anyone. But they do have that in common. This is not new for Angel. It is bringing it out for the audience. And that makes sense to me. These are still early days of the series. People at the time might have been tuning in, not having seen Buffy, not having seen the earlier episodes. And this puts Angel's curse at the forefront. It puts his struggles at the forefront. And the best parts of the episode, I think, are Cordelia's party and his interactions with her friends, with Wesley. Wesley, I do really enjoy. The most engaging thing for me in this episode is the small movement in Wesley, who became more a part of the team, or definitely a part of the team last week, now being officially hired. I love that. I empathize with his awkwardness, with his financial struggles, with how hard he tries. And that is fun to me. That is engaging, I feel, for Wesley. And I love Cordelia. She is funny. She is smart. She is concerned about whether she's going to get a pay cut. We know Cordelia can't afford that either. But she is genuinely welcoming to Wesley while pointing out the way he grovels. So that I liked. But those things were a pretty small part of the episode. Moving on to world building, how does this fit in the Buffyverse, and does it expand the Buffyverse? The rules are consistent. Everything here fits. The rules for Angel, his curse, that all fits. I do see this as expanding the Buffyverse in a thematic way, not relating to those unintended themes I talked about, but the moral ambiguities, the complexities. While Buffy did deal in that, there were villains with shades of gray, heroes with shades of gray, characters who had major arcs where they change significantly, like Faith and Spike. Generally speaking, most episodes of Buffy move towards some type of justice. Buffy deals with justice and with protecting people. Ultimately, we almost always know what the right thing is in Buffy. There isn't usually a big dispute. There are some very key moments when Buffy stabs Faith that there is moral ambiguity there. But for the most part, Buffy is not struggling for what is the right thing to do, and we as the audience are not struggling with that. And usually if she is struggling, it resolves. She sacrifices herself so that she can save the world and protect Dawn, not have to choose one or the other. Not a great result for Buffy, but a moral choice, where here Angel makes the moral choice of he will protect both. He will do everything he can to both help the female demons and protect the people of his world. Jira, on the other hand, is more apt to only focus on her female demons, but I don't know that that is a moral wrong, in the sense that given the world she came from, she may feel that is her only option. Now that she's come up against Angel, she may try harder to make sure that nobody human is killed, but to some extent, it may not be possible. She seems to be trying to be there when every girl comes through. She seems to have done what she could to pack them in ice to make sure they're protected, and it just doesn't always work. So there is a little more here, which is very interesting, in that you might genuinely be trying to do all the right things, and you just might not be able to keep people from harm. We get a little of that in Buffy, but to me, to have this so early in Angel signals that this is a show that will probably deal much more in shades of gray and moral questions and complexities than Buffy did. I suspect that is why some viewers, one of the reasons some viewers like Angel, the series, better, and why I like Buffy better, one of several reasons. I tend to feel like there is enough moral complexity and situations like this in real life, so I go to fiction to be briefly in a world where almost always the hero will prevail and there will be a right choice. Now we get to my rating of the episode. This is kind of funny because to me, because in my notes, I don't always read this part, but it's for myself. I have 0 to 10, with 10 being this year's girl / who are you? Those were the Faith body switch episodes in Buffy. And 3.5 being where the wild things are. That was the episode where Buffy and Riley are having sex the whole time, and the fraternity house is taken over by these child poltergeists. 3.5 is that, and I say leaving space below. So leaving room for episodes of Angel that I do not think are as good as my least favorite episode of Buffy. I hadn't really thought about where the wild things are in a while, but when I was struggling with, what am I going to rate this? I looked at that and immediately said, I'd rather rewatch Where the Wild Things Are than She. So that makes this my first rating that will go below the Buffy least favorite episode. The thing with Where the Wild Things Are, which also explores some sexual themes and has some messages that I find a little troubling, but it also has these really high spots. Giles singing in the cafe with his guitar. That's such a great moment. Anya and Spike commiserating at the Bronze about their demon days. Those are so good that every time I rewatch that episode, I think, there is a lot here that I like, even though I am not a fan of the overall storyline. And in contrast, in She, I don't find any moments like that. Cordelia has some great lines. I appreciate it. I do like Wesley's arc moving along a bit, and I enjoy Alexis Denisov's performance. But those don't rise to the level of Spike and Anya or Giles with his guitar. And I like, I was going to say I like the overall storyline less, but I have to say it's probably kind of a tie. So where I put this episode is at a rating of 3 on a scale of 0 to 10. I would love to hear your thoughts. If you want to share them with me, you can leave a comment on the episode on YouTube or on the Buffy and the Art of Story Facebook page or on Patreon, or email me buffystorypod@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening. Come back in 2 weeks for season 1, episode 14. I've Got You Under My Skin, a story that really, really scares me. It is about the Angel investigation team trying everything, including an exorcism, to help a family plagued by an ancient demon. You can find back episodes of Buffy and the Art of Story, as well as the Buffy and the Art of Story books and all my fiction at lisalily.com. To support the podcast, hear extra bonus content, and get each regular episode a few days early, join the Patreon community at patreon.com/Lisa M. Lilly. That's Lisa, M as in Marie, Lilly. Music for this episode was written and performed by Robert Newcastle. Buffy and the Art of Story is a production of Spiny Woman, LLC. Copyright 2025. All rights reserved.